Come in, come in.
आप किस मीडियम में बोलना चाहेंगे? इंग्लिश में? इंग्लिश में. So, Vatsari, first of all, welcome. We don't get too many dentists as interview. So, don't you think pursuing your own career as a dentist will be more rewarding, at least in a city like Delhi, when we look at any other problem, we find that dentists are really in demand, and good dentists are always in demand. So, are you a good dentist?
Sir, I think my patients will give a better review on what kind of a dentist I am. According to me, I am good enough.
Yes. So why won't you like to become better and continue and make a good life out of it?
Sir, for me personally, financial and economic stability or abundance is not a necessity, and I would like to join the services because the services have a huge diversity, and we get to serve in different panoramas of work. So that is why I would like to pursue the civil services.
Yeah. I mean, you come from Jharkhand, so it's a state. Sitting in a place like Delhi, we always see bad news about Jharkhand, terrorism and forest agitations, mining corruptions, and so on and so forth. So, what would you think would be the major concerns of people of Jharkhand? As a common citizen, what are the major concerns? And as an administrator, how do you think they can be resolved?
So the major issues in Jharkhand primarily would first be the concern of education. Higher education is quite lagging in Jharkhand. Secondly, sir, hunger and poverty are huge issues, primarily because of the tribal population there. Apart from this, sir, infrastructure is a concern because tribals are very attached to their land, and they perceive any infrastructural growth that is to be brought about as a threat to their existence or their autonomy. So these are the three major problems. Sir, as an administrator, my primary aim would be education, because sir, education will actually attack all the three problems with a single sword. Education will bring in a change in mindset where people will perceive good governance as actually good for them, which is not the current scenario. Apart from that, hunger and malnutrition or the issues of poverty. So I think education accompanied with schemes like midday meal and nutritional supplements to mothers in the villages, I think all this will sort out the problems of hunger and malnutrition.
Tell me, I'm told that despite all the willingness of the government to spare education, it can't because there are no roads. We don't have electricity, we don't have the infrastructure. So between the two, what shall come first, education or infrastructure?
So I think education should come first, because education will give a positive outlook towards infrastructure.
No doubt about the need. I'm saying practicability, implementability of what would your blueprint to spread education?
Sir, I think education is not necessarily the modern form of education that we perceive. Sir, every village has their own system of gurukuls or own system of vocational training which they pursue. So I think just formalizing it or having a brief administrative oversight over the traditional ways of education that are practiced in villages can be used as a primary intervention, and then as the base is widened, we can try to pursue the modern form of education.
You are from Jamshedpur, and I'm told that Jamshedpur is a very progressive city, and it has very little resemblance with the rest of Jharkhand. Jamshedpur is in existence for more than 100 years. Why is it not spread? or why is that culture or that the good parts of Jamshedpur not spread across?
So Jamshedpur is a private sector led model, and the model of the immense development or growth that we see in Jamshedpur is primarily because of the intervention by the Tatas. So since the Tatas do not pursue, like, although they are very religiously contributing in social to their social responsibilities, but still the Tatas, we cannot deny, work on a profit model. They do not share the concepts of a welfare state. So I think the reason why this has not spread is because the Tatas have localized it to their industrial regions, and that is why it has not spread to the rest of the state.
Okay, thank you.
What's now? We just spoke about Tata, and Tatas are also known for philanthropy.
Yes.
They are one of the pioneers in terms of philanthropic activities. So tell me how India as a society is vis-a-vis the Western societies. How good are we in philanthropy? Are we good or are we bad, or what needs to be done? What are your viewpoints?
Ma'am, starting from the inequality that India has, where 1% of Indians are owners of 70% of Indian wealth, no doubt philanthropy has great scope, but we have not performed that well in philanthropy. I do not deny that Tatas or Birlas or the Reliance Group are not contributing enough, but the rest, there are many others who could have done more, and I think philanthropy still needs a lot more intervention.
Recently, there was a gentleman in news who donated a huge amount of his wealth to the philanthropic activities just recently. Can you name?
Ma'am, I'm not very sure about whom you're talking, but I think Sonu Sood has contributed a huge amount.
It's Wipro chairperson Azim Premji.
Yes.
Who has donated a huge amount of his wealth to the charitable cause. Okay. Tell me, normally when we talk about women, there's one reason which we normally discuss about the sorry plight of women, that is objectification of women. Yes. What are the reasons behind the same? Who is responsible?
Ma'am, primarily I think it's the legacy issue. It has been happening, and that is why it is still happening. So ma'am, I think mostly it can be owed to the legacy, the social stigma that was attached to women being objects of sexuality. I think that is the prime reason, and the second reason which I would say is women have not developed socio-economically, because of which they are not equipped enough to raise a voice, be it because of the social pressures, be it because of their familial foundations, or because of their financial dependency. They are unable to raise a voice. So
no, but when we see any advertisement, or let's say any movie, why the women are just being typically portrayed just as sexual objects, nothing more than that? Are we not having much more to us?
Ma'am, here humbly I'd like to differ from your opinion. I think the movies today are making great progress. I think there have been a lot of women-centric movies coming up. The society is on its road to change, and I'm very sure it will be in a positive direction very soon.
Okay. When we talk about public administration, there's normally a big debate about public versus private. So can you list me 3 major differences? What exactly constitutes the public administration, and what exactly is private administration? How do they differ?
Ma'am, primarily the difference between public administration and private administration is the motive. Public administration works as a welfare state, and private administration works with the intent of profit. Secondly, where public administrators are driven by motivations like service or versatility or basically philanthropy, private administration is mostly driven by money and other economic benefits. thirdly, I think the difference between private and public administration would be the management. The management of private administration is controlled by a few people or a group of people, whereas in public administration it is administered by the public. The will of the people should reflect itself in public administration.
Then tell me why public sector enterprises are doing so much, not well, and there have been talks of privatization of public sector enterprises. Why is it so? If welfare of the people and their long-term interests are in mind, then why are we going for privatization?
Ma'am, I think public sector enterprises can be divided into three categories. One, which are performing well and there is no need for privatization of the same. Second, which are somewhere in the middle, where we can have small private intervention here and steer it towards better growth. And the third is the non-performing public sector enterprises which need to be privatized. The need for privatization comes because it is driven by a agenda of welfare state. Public administration is unable to keep up with the costs or the competitive market that exists, and because of which it is struggling in the market and it is unable to meet its costs. So I think that is the reason why we are aiming for privatization.
Okay, my last question to you. You like doing stand-up comedy. That's your one of the hobby.
I like watching. I haven't done it as yet.
Okay.
Plan to.
Okay, so you like watching stand-up comedy. So, what is the norm now? Of late, there was a certain section of comedians were arrested.
Yes, ma'am.
What are your views about the same? Can't we take humor lightly?
Ma'am, this is another legacy issue which comes in India. We as Indians, we are not very open or not very accustomed, I would say, because it's almost a new concept. So we are not very accustomed to taking humor. I think the reasons why the recent comedians were arrested or were taken in a negative light, I think here I would say that we should not take, as a society we should learn to develop humor, and their opinions, I think even they, knowing the society that they are performing in, I think they should also try their level best to not hurt the sentiments which is easily offended in India.
Thank you.
Taking forward from the ma'am only, there were some legal aspects to the arrest of these comedians. Are you aware of them?
Sir, I think one of them was sedition, where they were seen attacking the state, and the second was religious sentiments. They were hurting few religious sentiments.
Okay, Vatsala, tell me, this is your third attempt. What was the scenario in the first and second? Did you write mains?
No, sir.
Okay, what went wrong in those two attempts?
So my first attempt, I hadn't prepared, and I thought I am brilliant enough to clear it in the first attempt. I got my lesson. In the second attempt, my CSAT went wrong. I scored very well in my prelims, but my CSAT I didn't score well. So.
Okay, so as a person who's read public administration, you must have read about a lot of thinkers. Who's your favorite thinker?
So talking about it, I think Renesas Likert would be my favorite thing.
Okay.
He speaks about participative management.
So what type of a leader you are?
I am also a participative democratic leader.
Okay, democratic leader. Democratic leaders have a problem with them. They listen to everyone, but they are not able to arrive at a conclusion. Am I right?
Yes, sir, this is a problem associated, but we can find solutions to it when we can have a holistic approach to any problem.
How would you, holistic approach to the problem, right? So where do you place India in the Riggsonian theory?
I think we are a collect society. We are in the transition state where we are transitioning between agraria and industria. We have clubs, but we are also sectarians. We have developed great scientific temperament, but we also rely mostly on puja to get success. So we lie in the middle.
Okay, So as you said, like we are in the middle somewhere. That is why the power of the government service, civil services is going down, right? So Lal Batti is already gone. Still, you are motivated to join public service, considering your familial income and everything. Do you think that you'd be able to sustain yourself when these perks are being withdrawn?
So, for me personally, I was never driven by an economic or financial mindset. For me, services is the basic idea of service. That is it. I want to serve the people.
Okay. And what is the basic idea of service?
Sir, I love to get a smile to people's faces. I like to heal people of their sufferings, and I have done that in my as a dentist as well. And then later on, even I would like to pursue this.
Okay. So could you tell me the 5 major problems of Jharkhand?
Sir, I think 5 major problems. I would start with education. We do not, our education or our literacy rate is somewhere around 66%. So that is one issue. Secondly, the issue of hunger and malnutrition, wherein the SDG index released by the Niti Aayog, we rank second last. Our hunger and nutrition score is 19. So that is a very sorry state. Thirdly, I'd say health, where the tribals or the people, rural areas, which is 76% of our population is rural, and they are suffering from lack of access to health care. So I think health is the third problem. Fourthly, I would go for women empowerment, where women are not very well equipped to fight their own battles, and they are reliant mostly on their male counterparts. And fifth, I would like to say infrastructure, which has not seen a very healthy growth in Jharkhand.
Okay. So again, you must have read about Leviathan state, big state, or state which is too big to be handled, right? Do you think that we've made ourselves too much dependent on the private sector insofar as the recent health crisis was concerned?
So I'm unable to understand your question.
My question is, have we made ourselves, has the Indian state made itself very much dependent on the private sector? Learning from the recent health crisis, we did not have enough number of beds, we did not have oxygen facilities. So do you think that over-reliance on the private sector has taught us a lesson again?
Sir, I don't think we are over-reliant on private sector. In fact, there are still demands that there should be privatization and all that. Health and the COVID-19 pandemic, yes. But sir, apart from that, we also have to see the fact that the problem was also too big to handle. Any state, and I am talking about the best states of the world, have perished in this situation. So I think it was more, the problem was so universal and it was such a huge one, and our population is so large. So we were bound to face problems. We cannot deny that. And our state is not reliant a lot on private. Yes, private sector did play a major role, but we also see that they did heal a lot. So I think we are somewhere in the middle. We are in the right mix, and I think privatization with the supervision of administration is the right approach.
Okay. Over to you, ma'am.
Could you please differentiate between growth and inclusive growth?
Ma'am, growth would involve a mere increase in numbers, starting from GDP growth or something like educational growth or something like coverage of education. But inclusive growth is more of a democratic approach where all the sections of the society are concentrated upon and all of them grow together, and all the indicators are reflected in all the socio-economic stratas of the society.
Okay, so what is India doing to promote inclusive growth?
Ma'am, the concept of inclusive growth came in 2002, and India has been striving to achieve the same. Missions like Digital India Mission, Beti Bachao Beti Padhao, or the idea of good governance where citizen-friendly approach, or the idea of 360-degree performance appraisal where people are participating in the reviews of civil servants, I think we are on the road to inclusive growth.
So you come from Jharkhand, so I'd like to know about the tribal situation in Jharkhand.
Tribes constitute, according to the census, tribes constitute 26% of Jharkhand. But if we talk about it, we are almost 32% of our population. So tribals, they have very huge sentiments attached to their land, and that is why we see these movements where Pathalgadi movement or things like where Munda agitation or everything, they reflect the close sentiments that we attach to our lands. So ma'am, that is one state. Secondly, tribals are not very open to accepting the modern way of life. We cannot intervene in infrastructure there. We cannot intervene with modern healthcare practices there because they are not receptive to it. So that is one scenario. Thirdly, the indigenous practices of the tribals, starting from tribal medicine to the rearing, culturing of forest produces, tribals have great knowledge and great insights in it, and we as a state are trying to nurture the same. Then they have huge insights into agriculture. Their traditional practices have been recently introduced by our government in the Krishi Utthan Yojana, which the Munda Krishi Utthan Yojana, where solar power and the tribal practices have been clubbed in with modern practices, and a very healthy approach to irrigation has been cultivated by the state.
So do you think that the present system of administration is sensitive to the needs and the culture of tribals?
Ma'am, as a state, Jharkhand is doing a lot for integrating itself to the tribal practices. And as a country, I think we are also approaching towards the indigenous ways. The recent new education policy had inputs to learn indigenous languages or to learn in the local regional languages. So we are currently diversifying ourselves. We also have developed astrology, where UGC has launched astrology as a new sector, in education. We are also concentrating on Ayush medicines for holistic medicine. So we are approaching the tribal way of life.
Okay, so what are Bretton Woods institutions? What are Bretton Woods institutions?
Ma'am, Bretton Woods twins were the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank Group. They were formed in the 1940s post the World War because the world was in a state of dire debt because of the World War, and they were formed to regulate and conduct infrastructural and socioeconomic growth in the world.
So do you think they are working properly today?
Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I'm not very well informed to address this issue.
Okay, no problem. So how is India's foreign policy functioning as of today?
Ma'am, India's foreign policy is diversified, and we have a three-way approach to our foreign policy. Our first circle is our neighborhood, India's first circle, which is of highest and utmost strategic importance. We follow the Gujarat doctrines for our neighboring states, where India has a big brotherly attitude towards our neighbors. The second circle would be the Middle East and the Central Asian countries, where we follow an integrative approach, where we trade together, we try infrastructural growth. And the third circle will be the world circle, which includes USA, with whom we are collaborating in groups like Quad, in groups like Australia, Japan, India group, or things like that, where we are integrating with them and leading towards sustainable growth in the world.
Okay, you have mentioned that India has a big brotherly attitude towards our neighbor. Do you think is it the right thing to have?
Ma'am, initially we were surrounded by countries towards whom we had a big brotherly attitude, including Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan. they were at the base of their development, and at that time I think a big brotherly attitude was a necessity. But recently we see that they are also in quest for their autonomy, and they are also seen developing themselves in their way. So I think the big brotherly attitude has to be toned down, and we should allow a participative growth for these countries.
Okay, my last question for you. What is good governance, since you have mentioned about it previously?
Ma'am, good governance is a healthy mix of a lot of things that have been devised after years and years of practice of governance. First thing, it has a legal framework for action. A legally backed framework is existent. Second thing, it has a role-based governance where the administrators are more concerned about getting the service done or serving the people instead of leading the people. Thirdly, aspects of transparency and accountability are primary to good governance. Fourthly, participation of citizens and a citizen-centric approach to growth is necessary. And lastly, I would like to conclude that good governance is more of participation by people and a people-led growth where the administrator acts as a friend, philosopher and guide to the people. Thank you, ma'am. Namaskar, sir.
Yes.
Yes.